Last week, a missionary attempting to contact a remote island tribe was killed to death with arrows, and as I read the story, I started to realize that that missionary could have been me. I've mentioned in the past how I grew up as a missionary kid in Asia. From my childhood, I was taught that the purpose of man was to know God and make him known. This was so heavily ingrained in me that as a kid, rather than reading comic books with superheroes in them, I instead read glorified accounts about the lives of missionaries, over 17 full biographies. And those are just the ones that I remember. Included in that list were multiple martyrs, people who were portrayed as heroes because they died for their faith. And these stories were meant to inspire others to go to such lengths for their faith as well. One of the most famous of these stories is a book called Through the Gates of Splendor, a story about 5 missionaries to the Alca tribe in the Ecuadorian rainforest who were speared to death in an attempt to spread their religion to the tribe. After the massacre, the missionaries' wives and children then proceeded to the jungle in a second attempt to spread the gospel to the natives, eventually succeeding where their husbands failed. Rather than depicting this story as a tale of needless death and tragedy, the 5 missionaries are celebrated as martyrs. This is one of the most famous missionary stories and was turned into a popular motion picture and is almost universally known within the missionary communities. So when I heard last week that John Allen Chau, an American missionary attempting to reach the uncontacted Sentinelese tribe, was shot to death with arrows while trying to spread the gospel, I couldn't help but think that he had to have read this book by Elizabeth Elliot about Operation Alca and the 5 martyrs who lost their lives. When I read his journal extracts referring to the island he was about to die on as the last stronghold of Satan and possibly the only place on earth where Jesus Christ's name had not yet been heard, it hit me that that way of thinking used to be mine. I was taught that it was our duty as Christians to spread the gospel till Jesus' name was glorified in every tribe, tongue, and nation. And then, and only then, would Jesus return and usher in the end times, something most Christians anticipate. But the similarities didn't stop there. John Allen Chau was only about a year younger than me. We both went to private Christian universities. Hell, he went to the same university as my mom, Oral Roberts. I guess where I got lucky is that I wound up transferring to Texas A&M after only a year. We both were soccer players and we both were missionaries to Asia at one point, and we both regarded God's law as more important than man's. We both had a deep love of mankind and wanted to spread the love of Jesus, but had to do it covertly. In my case, because you couldn't get a direct missionary visa and risked deportation for publicly proselytizing. In Chau's case, according to the Washington Post, a fellow missionary told his mother that Chau's plan was not to tell anyone what he was up to and to avoid putting his friends at risk, since it's illegal to travel to the island. Although the missionary organization that he was with knew his plans, knew they were both dangerous and illegal, and sent him anyways. An attitude among missions boards that's all too familiar to me.
Mary, we have to ask, did your organization in any way support or have advanced knowledge or know he was doing this, and did you want him to go?
Yes. So John Chow is a member and a missionary of All Nations. We knew his calling to share the love of Jesus Christ with the North Sentinelese, and we knew he was going, and we sent him.
I can't help but put myself in his shoes, because before I deconverted, I absolutely could have seen myself doing something like this due to the sheer force of religious indoctrination ingrained in me. I don't think John was a bad guy. I don't even think he was a crazy person. Aside from his religious fervor, every account of this guy was one of a kind-hearted, intelligent man. He was a college graduate, a soccer coach, a wilderness EMT, and that's what makes this story so tragic to me. Here we have an example of religion causing an otherwise sane person to do something incredibly foolish, and it wound up costing him his life. If any of John's friends or family are watching this, I am so sorry for your loss. In researching this story, I saw 2 sides put forth by the media. Either he's being depicted as a loving martyr or as a villain. I don't really think it's either. While he did break the law to contact the tribes illegally, and they clearly wanted to be left alone, and he put their communities at risk of exposure to diseases for which they have no built-up immunity, I don't think that he had villainous intentions, and I think he was probably coming from a place of love, albeit a very confused place of love. But this was incredibly stupid. Imagine how the story would have been portrayed differently if he had given his life to tell the Sentinelese people about the magic of Santa Claus and had himself been indoctrinated into spreading this message his entire life. Would we call him a martyr for Santa, or just tragically misinformed? And if you're thinking that his way of thought is some kind of anomaly, it's actually extremely common in evangelical circles and missionary organizations, and it's growing. I've seen it spreading not just in the southern United States, but everywhere from Australia to South Korea to Nigeria, these aren't just a few crazy people. For example, I'm multilingual. I graduated with honors from an excellent university with a double major. I've never been diagnosed with any kind of mental illness, and I have a higher than average IQ and EQ. But although I'm an atheist and a skeptic now, there was a point in my life that I very easily could have seen myself doing exactly what John did. That's the power of religious indoctrination. That's the danger of it. And that's just one more reason why it has to end. Please, help me counter it. If I've helped you in any way with my videos, or if you think that my message is important and this religious fundamentalism needs a counter movement, please help me. You can support my work not just by liking and sharing my videos, but if you go to patreon.com/holykoolaid, you can pledge as much or as little as you want per video for as many videos as you can afford to sponsor. Even just $1, that's like a cup of coffee a month, goes a really long way, and you get certain perks in return. It helps me keep making these videos, providing resources on websites, and be able to operate online communities without having to worry about things like food and rent. And with more support, I'll be able to grow this. I'll be able to not just upgrade my video quality, which I'm in the process of building a home studio, but it'll greatly extend my reach. I have a lot of projects coming up that I think you guys will love. I'd love to be able to hire a support team to boost our online presence, run ads, and so much more. There's almost no limit to our potential growth here. This is how we push back against religious fundamentalism. It's how we dismantle the stigma against atheists, and I need your support. I'll leave a link to my Patreon in the video description. Please go check it out. Thank you. And as always, dare to be curious, but don't drink the Kool-Aid.